What's up everybody, it's Man of Low Moral Fiber here, my name's Luke, and in this video I'm going to be doing a short compilation of the Headhunter bosses, not including Son of Craw, who turns into a raid boss, so I kind of consider him worthy of his own video maybe, but the rest of the 4 bosses that were released as part of these Headhunter packs, with Melee Zer0 at 60 FPS, just because I thought it might be a good little video to do. We're going to go in the order in which they were released because that made sense to me. The first one here is Jaco Laner. Obviously all of these Headhunter packs were released to kind of coincide with real life holidays, and this one obviously went along with Halloween. I hadn't fought any of these bosses in a long time, so some of the kills aren't even close to perfect. I guess the turkey one is pretty close to perfect, but the other 3 probably aren't very good. But you know, it was my first time fighting these guys in a long time, so I do okay. So we're just going to try to jump up and get critical hits on the back of this guy's head here. I think I'm missing the critical hits, that's why I'm not doing as much damage as I theoretically could be doing. This guy's actually a lot easier to fight with Sniper Zer0 than he is Melee Zer0, but he's still not that tough with Melee Zer0, at least for the first portion of the fight. The second portion of the fight, where his head flies around, can be a little bit tough, and I remembered that, and so that's why I'm actually going to switch to a Lyuda to lower his health. I did want to kill the pumpkin head when it's flying around with Melee though, so I do go ahead and try to do that. I think it ends up taking me a little bit of time. I hadn't really watched this footage yet, but I'm going to switch to the Lyuda here and then go ahead and lower the pumpkin head's health by quite a bit. If you have critical ascension, you'll wear through this head really quickly, especially since you will have already acquired some critical ascension from taking down his first stage, and that's pretty cool. However, he can still be pretty fun to kill with Melee Zer0. It's just a little bit challenging to time your execute on that head quite right. I hit him there, but I didn't do too much damage. I wasn't exactly sure what happened there. Anyway, I'm going to use the Lyuda just to lower his health even more, making sure I stay alive using a combination of the Grog Nozzle and the Chain Lightning. So I'm just going to push him into Killing Blow so that I can make sure that my next melee strike on him, if my shield is down, is going to kill him. So now he's definitely in Killing Blow range, and so that's what I'm going to attempt. I do pick up this speed candy here, thinking that that will help me hit him, but then, if I remember correctly, I use up the entire speed candy's duration without actually punching him in the head. Seemed like a couple times I had lined up the enemy in my crosshairs, and then I had tried to do an execute while I was in deception, and I just wasn't able to actually get that execute off, and so that was a little bit irritating for me. My shield had started recharging there, that's why it didn't kill him there, so we'll get him eventually though. I did want to make sure and kill him with melee since I am playing quote-unquote Melee Zer0. Obviously at level 72 though, you get kind of a hybrid build. I do catch up to him here and finish him off, so that was pretty cool. And now we'll be moving on to the second boss, the turkey boss here, in just a second. Obviously these bosses aren't really known for dropping incredible loot. I guess the Snowman Boss does drop some loot, but that's kind of via the train more than anything. So we're going to go up and fight the turkey boss here. And this fight actually does go pretty well. This was my first attempt on all these bosses. That's why none of them are really too great. But I had just run in here to this DLC, and this was the first time up the chute in a long time for me. I was not a fan of this DLC, primarily because the stupid Grandma Torg story really pissed me off. I fucking hated that. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and kill the turkey here, and then we'll kill all the tributes as well. Now that the turkey's down, I will start concentrating on the tributes. The turkey's probably the weakest and easiest of all of the Headhunter pack bosses, and that's another reason why this DLC is not really that great. But I do get a pretty cool mini must fall chain here on the tributes, and that's pretty neat. And, you know, one-hitting the turkey boss there and then getting a mini must fall chain on the tributes and the Torg Vision camera is pretty cool. That's probably pretty close to perfect for a melee run on that turkey boss there. So we'll be moving on to the Snowman Boss now. The Snowman Boss is probably the hardest, I would say, of the 4 of these bosses. The Happy Couple can be pretty difficult, actually, with certain characters. With Melee Zer0 and his burst damage, though, they are actually fairly easy. So it depends on which character you're playing, I guess. With Melee Zer0, I might consider this guy to be the toughest of the 3 bosses. Some of his behavior isn't really that great for taking on with Melee Zer0, but he can still be done, you know, pretty easily. None of these bosses are too incredibly difficult. However, if this guy misbehaves, he can be a little bit difficult. See, like right now, I'm trying to hit him, but when he's down in the ground like that, he's invincible. And so that's kind of irritating because you can waste a deception like I did there. Like I said, these were all my first attempts, so none of them are going to be quite perfect. Except the turkey one. That was pretty close to perfect. So we're just going to go ahead and try to get good executes on this guy. He takes a little bit of time. I'm not really a fan of bosses that are super huge like this. It seems like Jaco was a pretty good size, but this guy is a little bit too large. Like, you know, if you're next to him, you can't even see his head or anything. And it's just, he moves around like way quicker than Zer0 can run and stuff like that. And I find that to be irritating and a little bit of bad boss design in my opinion. And a couple other things, like he hit the opposite direction of which way he swung his cane there. It's just little nuances like that that kind of make me think, this boss could have been a little bit better. But this guy actually ended up being pretty popular for a lot of people because you can go to the train after you kill him and you can actually get you know, some pretty good gear off that train, and that became a pretty popular farming run for some people. Again, he dove under the ice there to where I can't execute him, and that kind of stuff is just a little bit irritating, you know. It's like, he's alright, but stuff like that just, you know, is a little bit irksome. It doesn't ruin the boss by any means, but it definitely could be better. So we're going to go ahead and pull his hat off here, which will kill him. And then I'll kind of cut to the train and we'll see what I got from the train. If I remember correctly, I get a purple doll sniper and a slag Topnia, which is the E-Tech Vladov launcher, and it's a pretty solid weapon. So this is why people kind of like this boss. You open this here after defeating him, and you're actually pretty liable to get at least a few purples, or a couple purples I'd say, every time you open it, and legendaries aren't that rare from this either. And so this is actually a pretty good way to get gear if you're leveling up in the game. And some people really appreciated that. So we're going to be moving on to the last Headhunter pack here that doesn't have a raid boss, which was the fourth one. And this one of the first four, I would say, is probably my favorite. Actually, including Son of Craw, this one's probably my favorite. I enjoyed a couple things about this. I thought that the boss fight was pretty interesting. I was happy not to kill Bridget there. She had got unslagged just before I hit her, so that was good. Now she's in killing blow range, and I'm going to go ahead and get ready to straight up kill Colin. And this way I will be able to get a killing blow on Bridget before she can revive Colin, and I think that's pretty neat. I think this is probably the best done out of any of these four boss fights because it has the most unique mechanic with that Romeo and Juliet effect. And I just think that that's a pretty cool boss fight. So as always, guys, I do thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it. Like I said, this is my favorite Headhunter DLC. I know I had mentioned that in a video before, but I think it's pretty solid. I also like the Thresher run, and I do enjoy the Hodunk and Zafford mechanic or theme as well. It's not a mechanic, it's more of a theme. I will be sure to show you my gear and skill build here. We're going to wait for the loot balloon to come in and watch it explode. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little 60 FPS Headhunter boss compilation. Like I said, thank you very much for watching, guys. I'm going to show you my gear in just a second, and I do hope to catch you next time. Bye, guys.